Okay, we are at What the Farm, Virginia Beach, Virginia. Kelly and Chris, on your new land.
Yep.
You've been historically on that side
Yep.
of the Little Gully. Mm-hmm. And then you guys recently, just back in November? No,
June.
This past June, you guys acquired this place and you just put up some fencing. We got some cows and sheep grazing in the background. Tell us more about What the Farm and yourselves.
So we are first-generation farmers. We started farming because we lived in Australia for about 3 years for an exchange program with the military. And while we were there, we learned that the American food system has some serious problems. And I think it's hard to know that unless you get outside of it or unless someone tells you. But just the way that food's raised over there, the way that it's grown, how it goes bad very quickly because there's no preservatives. And so when we moved back, we really just wanted to start taking control over what we feed ourselves and our kids. So that's kind of how we started.
Yeah, we just went down the rabbit hole and reading books, watching lots of YouTube videos. We jokingly tell people we're YouTube certified. And between building fence and raising animals, we volunteered and helped out on other farms to try to get started, and it took off from 2 sheep and a dozen chickens.
Yeah.
And then it just blew up into this, and here we are.
Yeah.
Wow.
And we've surrounded ourselves with good people. We've found mentors like you guys and other farmers to just kind of help us grow. And regenerative farming is definitely a community sport, not a competitive one. It's one that, you all have to be together and help each other.
Right.
And you find that in this community, so it makes it a lot easier to step in.
Yeah. What makes the American food system so degenerative? Like what sets Australia apart from your guys's?
We went to the grocery store for the first time in Australia, and we just filled up the cart like good Americans do, and came home with a month's worth of food that lasted about a week. And I thought Kelly had really messed up, and I scolded her. And then we just started talking to some of the locals, and they were like, "No, it's like Whole Foods in America is like our normal grocery stores, and you walk in and the eggs are all on the shelves, and
Yeah.
I mean in large scale, and Australia has its own issues, but the spark in our brain was just like, I don't know anything about our food. I don't know anything about that animal, how it was raised, who raised it. And then, like I said earlier, you start going down the rabbit hole and a lot of questions come up, and then you're kind of, I don't think it's as complicated as everybody makes it out to be. Like if you know a farmer and you go talk to him and he's local and you can figure out exactly how he raises animals, I mean, it doesn't have to be certified organic or whatever label you want to put on it, but at least have some idea, the simplest level of where your food comes from. And in America, I couldn't 5 years ago, couldn't tell you where our food came from.
Yeah. And the food, like, we would travel all over Australia and you would see these beautiful paddocks with animals on them. Like, they would have these beautiful views by the water, and it was just normal. That's how animals are grown there.
Yeah.
We had a friend who would tell us stories. He used to buy meat for restaurants and stuff like that, and he would tell us a story about these cows in Tasmania that every day the farmer would run them through this like a pond. So like he would run them through the water every day so that they could get cool water and just like fabulous stuff. And it makes you feel good to like support that type of
Takes
system.
his cows swimming.
Yeah. He takes his cows swimming.
A little vacation.
It's pretty awesome.
That's hilarious. It's interesting, like pre-World War II, the top consumed fruit in the United States was the pawpaw, per my sources. Mm-hmm. with the industrialization of the food system, not that it wasn't occurring beforehand, before the war, but it definitely heightened after the war.
Yeah.
We saw the pawpaw drop off to the point where I bet most people listening to this have never even heard of a pawpaw.
Yeah.
But the key difference between a pawpaw and an orange or an apple or a lemon or a fruit that you have heard of, right, is it's not shelf-stable for a long time at all. And if you refrigerate it, it still doesn't lengthen its shelf life, and so you can't ship it, right? And so what we're seeing is foods over the last 100 years or so, foods that you can't turn into a national commodity have diminished. And I think what a lot of consumers, I mean, that's not like, to me, that's not an overwhelming fact. Like, we see this everywhere. Foods that we can't turn into a commodity, they just go away. That seems a little bit commonplace. Maybe surprising to some, but commonplace. But I think what a lot of people don't understand is that, I apologize for the analogy, but like, you guys are the pawpaw. Small, local, good farms that care about their communities, that care about the soil, that care about biodiversity, that's raising good food, that can't sit on the counter for a month without spoilage.
Right.
What future do you have in an industrialized, globalized, commoditized food system?
Yeah. Well, and one of the things you asked earlier is what makes other farming degenerative. And I think that there's going to be a breaking point, when soil is constantly sprayed and they kill everything in the soil just to come back and put more stuff on it and grow one crop at a time. That's not going to last.
Right.
And so eventually, I mean, it's sad to say that, like, that might be when people really understand, hey, we should do this a different way. I do think that people are coming around. I think people care more about how their food's raised and where it's coming from. But that's really, you just got to keep telling people. The other thing is that the food in the stores is costing so much now that we're almost to a point where we're almost comparable prices. So there's a good chance for us to switch people over while the numbers are so close. I mean, it's crazy what it costs for food in the grocery store.
I was at Whole Foods the other day, and a grass-fed ribeye, so not regenerative, not verified regenerative, not regenerative organic certified, not grass-fed and finished, not certified humane, just grass-fed, which we all know what that means. It's the most basic label we can possibly put on a package, and it's probably not even true because you can feed soybeans, corn, canola, and all sorts of other things and still call it grass. So again, this is the most basic label, and it's not even truth. It was $19.99.
Wow.
$20 for a ribeye steak with the most basic standards.
Yeah.
Comparable.
I know. It always shocks me because we don't buy meat in the store anymore. Like, when I go and start looking around, and I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, who is paying for this?
Yeah.
Kind of want to just stand there and be like, hey, you just go 5 miles down the street.
Right?
Like,
what a marketing tactic.
Right.
Though. Like, just go stand
let's just
at
go
the
to
Whole
the grocery
Foods
stores.
Yeah. Like, hey, I got something.
In the back of my car.
You should try that.
Well, talk to me about this. So we have cows and we have sheep and
One alpaca.
Just chilling. I think he's out of the frame. You can't see it. But talk to me about the management. So we're and you can talk about what you guys have historically done to regenerate that side of the farm.
Yep.
Talk to me about this field is 15
12
acres?
acres?
12,
It's about 12 acres, yeah.
Yeah.
So last year this had soy in it, right? Before you guys purchased
about
it.
16
Talk about
months
the
ago.
story and what you guys are trying to do here.
Yeah.
So historically, for probably since World War II, it was corn, soy, wheat. The 3 crops in 2 years, forever. And then once we acquired it, initially it was a lease. We got on the stop once they did their last harvest of corn, which would have been like October, November of 21.
Okay.
And then we were able to buy it through a USDA loan. We got the land, and then it didn't get touched for a year. We bush hogged it one time, and as of 4 weeks ago, we got enough fencing up to move the animals over.
Wow.
But the other side, the 4-acre pasture that we had, we were rotating the animals, mob stocking, pretty dense, and just rotating them every day. And that land was also just like this, but in the last 4 years since we've been doing that, it's made some drastic changes compared, and the EOV numbers between that side and this side are pretty drastically apart. So
Yeah.
Eventually, once we get our paddocks more established, we'll mob stock them here and rotate them quickly as well.
Yeah.
If you got anything to add?
Well, one of the things that we're really trying to do is see what the seed bank will do by itself. And that's something that you and I talked about. Like, we could throw seed out here. We could, put some amendments out here to really make this go quicker.
Right.
But we want to see what nature will do if we just adding the heavy animal impact. So, we'll see how we can do it. We're also small farmers, right? So we have to be able to grow animals. And,
right.
Chris and I go back and forth and just trying to let nature do its thing, and hoping that, the seed bank's there and we don't have to add anything to it, and just see what happens and see what grows. And then we also do the chickens over here, which I think will also make a big difference with the nitrogen and, just a lot of poop.
And hope.
And hope.
And hope.
Hope and poop.
I mean, like, we have more land in the United States that looks worse than this, right? What this looked like, a year ago, and it has looked like for the last 100 years. And in what you guys have done in a single year, just in some sense letting it go fallow, letting nature return, things like this, and then adding the animal impact and the strategic fencing systems and everything else. It's truly a sight. I don't think people truly understand the power behind the idea of regeneration in producing really, actually good food.
Yeah. And it's hard to know, like, I go on the app, my Fitness Pal, like, to put in like calories and stuff, and I'm looking at it and I'm like, I wish there was a better way to really take a piece of meat and know like what the nutrients in that is, because there's a big difference between grass-fed, grass-finished with, in nature,
right,
and just a piece of steak from somewhere else. And so I'm really interested in that type of thing, like, what are the nutrients? What are the different nutrients in meat that's raised this way? Because a lot of people tell me, well, grass-fed beef doesn't taste as good as,
sugar.
Regular. Yeah. And the truth is that a cookie tastes better than a salad, right?
Yeah.
And there's a difference. Like, you have to choose what it is that you want. Do you want the food that you feel like tastes the best because there's sugar, there's additives and things in it, or do you want what's really good for your body?
Right.
And so that's one of the things that I've just really started focusing on is really the nutrients that our food has, that we can share with other people in our community.
Yeah.
I mean, the healthy foods aren't as convenient as the commercial commoditized foods. You get a big fatty grain-fed steak, you can just slap it on the grill and it's going to taste pretty decent depending on how you cook it. But the grass-fed steak, and we had to educate ourselves. We find a good recipe and it's delicious. It's awesome. And it's the same thing with the chicken and the pork that we raise. It's the same thing. People just need to re-educate themselves if that's something they want to do. If not, we'll go our way. They go theirs. But
yeah. I think when a lot of people think about farms, they think about this rural environment where the farmer is just out there in the middle of nowhere. And sometimes that's obviously true.
Right.
But here, I mean, like, we're sitting in a particular way and we're looking at a nice backdrop, I guess. But, like, I see plenty of other houses and neighbors. We're just outside of Virginia Beach. I'm sure some people in Virginia Beach feel like this might be the boonies or something.
They do.
It's a 10-minute drive that. I mean, it's like,
and there's lots of restaurants and there's a huge, like, city in Hampton Roads right down the street. And then the ocean's right over here. We're in a really
interesting
awesome space, I think. Yeah. But it is interesting. And it's not
how accessibly
typical.
Close local farms could be is my point.
Yeah.
And the farms out in the middle of nowhere and the farms in the middle of the city, the urban farms, the rooftop farms and farms like this. Yeah. Really hope this sheep comes
This is
over
Wilson.
to us. They all have a place is my point.
Yeah.
And we need the grand diversity of all of them.
Well,
I think to have a truly better local food system.
That's the other thing about small farms. Like, you don't need 100 acres. You need 7 acres. We started with 7 acres. And you can do a lot of stuff with just a little bit of space. Isn't he cute?
Just
Wilson?
talk about this.
Oh my gosh! So Wilson,
us.
Wilson was one of the first babies born on our farm. He was a twin, and his mother rejected him. So I, at that time, as a very new farmer, I could not. I had to bottle feed him. I knew that I could not. I couldn't take it, and so he became my pet. And he's quite mischievous. He gets in trouble all the time.
And he loves his dandelion.
He loves all the things, but he would get out of his mob stock, and he would take everybody with him. So he's not afraid of us. Obviously, he loves humans, and he's the best. He's gotten too chunky to jump over the fences now, so he's a lot more behaved.
That's awesome. What about, let me ask you guys this question, and we'll see where it goes, but, so you guys got into farming for food and the nutrient density and everything else that we've talked about. What's been an obstacle that was unforeseen? Like, I think a lot of people think of farmers in the conventional side of life, and they look and they think about, conventional farmers have the highest rate of suicide in any industry in the United States, and they're always in debt, and it's always so hard. And they look at local regenerative farmers, and they're like, I think it's the opposite. Mm-hmm. Like, you guys aren't ever tired, and you aren't ever, down on your knees crying and chasing pigs down the road.
Right.
Talk about the real side. What has been a hurdle for you guys?
We were just talking about this the other day. We had our little disaster of the week, and it was one of our brooders caught on fire. And I mean, people have this romantic notion of what farming is, and these images in their heads of the red barn and the couple with the pitchforks down out front, and they're just happy as can be. And it's hard. And you mentioned the highest suicide rate, and I think most good dramas and romances, they have a lot of struggle in them, and there's a lot of struggle in farming, whether it's financially or just the act itself of pigs getting out, sheep getting out. Things die and things are born, but you will see it all. It's tough.
And I think we've gotten better at those things. Like in the beginning, when an animal would get out, we would just like completely lose it, and we're like, "What are we doing? How? We're not set up to do this. Like, we weren't meant to be farmers." But one of the things that I've learned is that anybody that wants to farm can farm. You don't have to have any experience. You just have to be able to work and want to work and have a desire to do it. And you just have to learn how to fail forward fast, right? The best teacher is learning things the really hard way, because usually it takes one time. We've killed a lot of animals not on purpose, and it's very sad, and it's devastating to us every time something like that happens. And we're learning, and we're still providing a better life for all the other animals that we have here because of those experiences and the things that we've learned the hard way.
Yeah. And I think it goes back down to community. Mm-hmm. I think so many farms, industrial, regenerative, doesn't matter. I think they're farming in a very siloed or individualistic or very lonely way. Right. And I think that the next step of the evolution of this thing into a much more nutrient-rich or beautiful way is going to be farmers working together to help that. Right?
Yeah. And like I said before, I find that here much more than what I would think in other areas, other industries. Like, there's not a ton of competition because we need all of us. We need all the farms. And because the farms are small, you need community. If you have these huge industries, these huge companies, they don't actually need anybody else because they've got enough for everyone, and this is the opposite of a monopoly. We sell out a chicken and we have to call our friends on the street and be like, hey, I've got customers that need chicken. What do you guys have? Can I send them your way? And we've helped people when, they ran out of turkeys and they needed a couple more turkeys for Thanksgiving. So we helped them, and then they helped us. And it's just, the community is natural, I feel like, in this type of lifestyle, I guess.
Yeah. What else? What else would you like to share? Anything on your minds? Other than the beautiful day?
Yeah, we're getting a nice little early spring here and
Fall, spring.
fall, spring.
Yeah,
No, it's here.
It's gonna.
Hopefully it stays.
I hope it stays, but I don't know that it will. No, I just think that what I'd like to tell people is you should know where your food comes from, and you should be okay with it, and that's it. Like if you go and you see that your food is raised on a cement, your pork's raised on a cement floor, and it's in a small cage, and you're okay with that, then that's okay. But you need to know, and then make your decision based on what you've learned. And some people it's not important to them that their animals are raised ethically, and that is their right. We live in America, and people should know. But if you learn something and you don't like it, then you deserve to get better food and find somebody that can do that for you, and that can produce food in a way that you feel comfortable eating it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it'd be nice if, like we kind of talked about in the beginning, if people would just ask, how did this steak get on my plate? How did this chicken get on my plate? What was it fed? Just those basic questions that, most of my adult life I never really cared to ask, but should have. What seems so common now wasn't common 4 or 5 years ago. But once you start seeing what you're growing and what you put into it, besides just the tangible things like feed and grass, all the effort that went into it. It just tastes a lot different when it's on your plate. And we like to see people vote with your dollar. That's how we kind of got in this situation where companies try to turn us into a high profit margin business, cut away all the things that take away from that profit, to include whole food items like the pawpaw. That's probably too expensive to grow and not worth the bottom line.
Yeah, I think that's just absolutely brilliant. I think there's a lot of hurdles in the way from the consumer, the end family, the end eater, to understanding where their food comes from. And so, like labels, push them out of the way, right? Names, push them out of the way. Organizations, convenient pathways, push it out of the way. Get to the source. And if you struggle to get to the source, let that be a sign.
Right.
Because I don't know a lot of pigs raised in concrete floored barns that you're allowed inside.
Right.
Right. So like if you
have to wear special shoes.
Exactly right. Like if you're struggling to learn the most basic item of your existence, which is the entity or farm or system or family that's producing the food for your nourishment so you can live for another day, if that's a hard thing to do,
you should look somewhere else.
Call up What the Farm.
Right. Well, and that's the thing is we've never turned anyone away from coming to our farm and looking at where, how we do things.
Or sitting on buckets
in
the middle of
buckets in the middle of a field.
Cow field.
And when people ask us questions, we love that. Like it's when you have something important that you're standing for, you like to be questioned. That's a good thing when people ask you questions. And if somebody's not willing to let you see where your food is grown, then that's something that I would be concerned about.
Yeah. What's a question that you guys wish you got asked more often?
Oh, that's a good question.
Like if somebody were to come out for a farm tour and you were like, if they ask this question, I'm going to go on a roll, it's going to be great, and they're going to learn everything they need to learn. Like what should the consumer be questioning?
Probably, how do I get into doing something like this?
Wow.
If somebody would just do whatever they can do. If you have a quarter of an acre, you can grow something. You can raise something.
Yeah.
Whatever you can't, you can reach out to the community and try to find a local farmer. If not, or like Common Provisions will come as best they can and help you out.
Yeah, I like it when people ask me, why should I buy your meat? Like obviously it's more expensive.
Loaded. You're ready to go.
Yeah, and I'm like, I will tell you. Come into my booth. Let's chat. And then I also love it when they want to know, are the animals happy? Right? Are the animals happy? Are they healthy? Do they live a good life? That these guys look pretty happy. Like they're not stressed out. They're good. And they got one bad day, one bad day here. And I think that's important.
Boys have two.
2 bad days. Oh, okay. Well.
It's incredible work you guys have done here. I don't want to let this moment pass and not say that last year this was in corn and laid fallow, and it was just absolutely bare soil. There was no bit of green growing. And now you guys, and correct my numbers, you guys have 12 cows and how many sheep?
26 as of this morning.
26 sheep. More. and they've been in this pasture grazing, and there's no food, there's no hay, there's enough life here to support them.
Yeah.
In a single year.
Which is amazing because it was terrible.
It's the power of nature.
Yeah. And nature knows best. If we just leave it alone and stand back. I think that's the other thing that you've kind of taught me is that we're really spectators here. Like we do very, very little. We may mend the fences and we may, coerce the animals into one space at a time and rotate them around. But we're really not a very big part of this picture. We're in the background. And the animals and nature are doing all the rest, and we need to keep that in our. And we need to be humble about that. Like this is not Chris and Kelly's like magical farm. This is like animals being animals, right? And nature being nature, and us stop. We just need to stop and just look and move slowly. So.
I love it. Well, thank you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.